For the record, it is Thursday, October 26, 2017. It's 5:15 p.m. The City Council is just out of executive session. Call the meeting to order. The first item would be the pledge to our flag. I don't even know which way I'm going. Councilmember Poyer, would you lead us?
Yes, please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember Poyer. And for the record, we have 6 council members present, and Councilmember Kulas is here via telephone till about 6 o'clock. First item on this evening's agenda would be the consent items, which includes this evening's agenda, vouchers, and the minutes from the previous meeting.
Your Honor, I make a motion to approve the agenda, the vouchers, and the minutes from the previous meetings.
Second?
Motion by Councilmember Huffaker, second by Councilmember Bailey to adopt this evening's consent items, including the agenda and the vouchers and the minutes from our previous meetings. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on our agenda this evening would be citizen comment. This would be a time if any member of the audience would like to address the council. We'd ask you to come up, give us your name and address for the record. We'd give you about 3 minutes of time. Anybody interested in visiting with the council? Seeing no takers, we'll move on to some presentations. We have 3 tonight. One is regarding our wastewater treatment plant, the second is Veterans Day, and the third is Patrick Jones from Eastern, who is en route. So our first item is the wastewater treatment plant Outstanding Performance Award. So do we, Matt, are you gonna take this one? Okay.
Yeah, so
And I see Adam's here.
Yep.
Come on up, Adam, get up there, come on.
our wastewater treatment plant was awarded an Outstanding Performance Award, which is great. It shows, I mean, it's really a reflection on Adam here. He's the one that keeps that place operating. We got Coleman Miller here from the Department of Ecology.
Oh, hi Coleman, come on up.
Thanks again. My name is Coleman Miller from the Department of Ecology, Central Region. And I'd just like to talk a little bit about this award. It's the Outstanding Performance Award. It's going to be a plaque that's going to hang next to some other plaques in the treatment plant because there's a history of doing a good job. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about this award. For a treatment plant to earn this award, the Washington State Department of Ecology recognizes treatment plants that do a really good job. Not just a good job, but a perfect job for the entire year. So they have to remain 100% compliant for the entire year. That includes effluent standards, biological, making sure the water is really clean coming out. So very high standards coming out of the water, as well as monitoring, reporting, certain maintenance requirements, and just making sure the treatment plant's being well taken care of. It's in our best interest because it makes sure that there is clean water coming out. It's in your best interest because they're protecting a huge investment. In many cities, it's the highest or the largest investment of the city, and it's just important to make sure we keep up-to-date maintenance and keeping track of how the plant is running. So I would like to recognize the operators and people who make sure this happens. It's not a one-time deal, build the plant and then it just runs itself. It's definitely people who deserve this award. So I'd like to recognize them by name. So we have Adam Reichert here, who is the wastewater treatment plant supervisor, and working with him are the operators Chad Noah, Josh Rader, Ron Eaton, Travis Clark, maintenance personnel Bob Calhoun, Devlin Walt, and working in the lab there at the treatment plant is Katie Landers, and also working on the collection systems, which is an integral part to the wastewater treatment system, are Adam Folk, Efrain Ramirez, Barry Clements, and Brent Corberly. This is a huge undertaking. There's a few million, is it about 3 or 4 million gallons a day?
3 million.
3 million gallons a day of wastewater that's coming into their plant every single day. And day after day, that wastewater is being taken care of by a really good plant, by very good operators, protecting that investment. And as a citizen of this community, you should be very proud of those operators, proud of what they're doing to protect that investment, protect the water and the Columbia River that we all enjoy, that winds its way all the way through Washington. The rest of us appreciate the clean water that's in that river, and protecting fish habitats and everything else. So they do a really good job, and I'd like to present this 2016 award for an outstanding performance to Adam.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Y'all can't go anywhere. Get your pictures taken. Adam, Coleman, Matt, come on. Get over
No,
here.
it's more Adam.
What's that?
More Adam than me.
Every so often you learn to take credit for stuff that you don't really deserve to take credit for.
Okay, smile. Okay, one more.
Oh, the picture.
Thank you.
You did a great job out there.
That's great.
So funny. Yeah.
We're all a little bit loopy.
One of my highlights last year as mayor is I got to go out and have lunch with all the guys at the wastewater treatment plant. It was pretty fun, and ladies.
Thank you for being here.
Wash your
Yeah,
hands.
thanks, Coleman.
you.
Appreciate
The
it.
city map.
Next on our list is the Veterans Day proclamation. Who has that?
I do.
Linda, you do? Would you read that into the record, please?
I'd be honored to. On November 11th of each year, we honor our veterans, men and women who have served our country with honor and distinction. On Veterans Day, we show them our deepest thanks. Their sacrifices have helped secure more than 2 centuries of American progress, and their legacy affirms that no matter what confronts us or what trials we face, there is no challenge we cannot overcome, and our best days are still ahead. Although much has changed since Americans first took up arms to advance freedom's cause, the spirit that moved our forebears is the same spirit that has defined each generation of our service members. Our men and women in uniform have taught us about strength, duty, devotion, resolve, cornerstones of a commitment to protect and defend that has kept our country safe for over 200 years. In war and in peace, their service has been selfless and their accomplishments have been extraordinary. Even after our veterans take off the uniform, they never stop serving. Many apply the skills and experience they developed on the battlefield to a life of service here at home. They take on roles in their communities as doctors and police officers, engineers and entrepreneurs, mothers and fathers. As a grateful nation, it is our task to make that transition possible, to ensure our returning heroes can share the opportunities they have given so much to defend. The freedoms we cherish endure because of their service and sacrifice, and our country must strive to honor our veterans by fulfilling our responsibilities to them and upholding the sacred trust we share with all who have served. On days like this, we are called to reflect on immeasurable burdens that have been borne by so few. We pay tribute to our wounded, our missing, our fallen, and their families, men and women who have known the true costs of conflict and deserve our deepest respect now and forever. Now, therefore, I, Frank Jane Kuntz, Mayor of the City of Wenatchee, with respect for and in recognition of the contributions our service members have made to the cause of peace and freedom around the world, do hereby proclaim November 11th, 2017 as Veterans Day in the City of Wenatchee and encourage all citizens to recognize the valor and sacrifice of our veterans through appropriate public ceremonies and private prayers. In witness whereof, I have caused the seal of the City of Wenatchee to be affixed on this 26th day of October 2017. Frank J. Kuntz, Mayor.
Thank you, Linda.
You're welcome.
Ian, how are you, sir? Always nice to see you.
Thank you.
Come on up.
You got a picture?
Oh, no, yeah.
Anna's gonna tell you one. Yeah, one from Anna. So tell us about the parade. When is it? Same time, same deal?
Yeah, the parade's always the same. It's on 11th month, 11th day, 11th hour. So on November 11th, we're going to have the parade. And first of all, we'd like to thank the city for for allowing us to do this and helping us, because without your help, we couldn't be doing this at all. And first of all, we're going to start in the morning. We're going to have a free breakfast for all veterans at the post, at the American Legion post. And with the rest of their family, it's by donation from 8 to 10. And then the parade's going to start at Wells Fargo Bank. And if you're going to be in the parade, you got to be there at 10:30 at the latest. And we encourage all veterans to come and be in the parade. If you can't walk, we'll get you a ride. And we got 4-H clubs, we got bands, and we got military rigs and all kinds of stuff that's in the parade. And it's a good thing. We need to support our veterans. They need it. Thank you.
Perfect, man. Thanks so much. So we'll see you at the 11th. Can't believe it's on my calendar for 10 o'clock. I'm moving it to 11. Done. All right. All right, and our next presentation is by Patrick Jones, our friend from Eastern Washington University. Patrick, come on up, and Pat's the one that tells us all the statistics that are going on in our city and our two-county area, and I'm sure you've got some great stuff for us, and always fascinating.
You want to go to the website, yeah. You want to tee that up. Did you want to go to the website?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll tee that up for you.
You're gonna key it up here?
Out there. Yeah. Just needs to go to the internet and go to Chelan Douglas Trends. Yeah.
Should work,
Yes,
right?
I think
Yeah.
so. I couldn't get it to work. Probably not be better right there. Right here, yeah. So it's great to be back, and I apologize if I was a little bit late, but I was in my first ever Wenatchee traffic jam. That literally lasted 20 minutes.
Hopefully,
from
we're
the-
coming from the north, right? Were you coming from the north?
It's coming from the south.
Okay.
Pangborn turnoff to the bridge. I think
Oh.
there was an accident, so.
Okay. We won't talk about the new roundabout that's there and how people
All
are
right.
trying to handle it. Yeah.
We have roundabout controversy in Spokane too. So just let me go to the Wenatchee, or to the Chelan Douglas Trend site. I think many of you have seen this before, and so you can regard my presence today as a bit of a checkup, and just to give you an idea of what's, yeah, I think that will work. So I don't know what my time slot should be, but I've got
20
about
minutes, okay?
I've got about 10 indicators, and
Okay.
we can go through these pretty quickly, I
Perfect.
think. And some of these are, I'm going to have a focus on the metro area, and some of them I'm going to focus just on the city of Wenatchee. The city of Wenatchee's, some of the latest data for the city of Wenatchee won't come out until just before Christmas. So, but I do think to some degree, as Wenatchee goes, so does the metro area. So I grew up with a family of 3 boys, and we always had this ritual of our father measuring ourselves on, or measuring us on our birthday. So I'm going to give you a little measuring stick here about your population, because population growth is pretty critical to, I think, the success of a community. So this is looking at a very long time trend, starting at 81, going through basically mid-year. And for those of you who don't know the convention, the metro area, the 2 counties, is in blue, and then the 2 other entities are black for the U.S. and green for the Evergreen State. And for the most recent period, if I can bring this over, basically Chelan and Douglas counties were growing slightly higher than the state of Washington. So that was pretty interesting. And the city, and if you haven't figured this out yet, you can drill down on not any, but many of these indicators to your data. And the city actually grew just a little faster. I think the area grew 1.6, I'm sorry, and you grew 1.7. So 1.7%, what does that mean? Well, that means you double your population in about 50 years, if that's a consideration. So it's a long time for anybody. But it basically means you've grown faster in this last 2 or 3 year period than you have grown for a long time. And last year you grew actually faster than any metro area or any of the eastern Washington cities. So that's interesting to see. And so my question is this the start of a trend? Is this the new normal that Wenatchee, the city of Wenatchee, is going to actually grow fairly fast? And I don't have an answer for that, but you may know. On the other hand, if you look at where you've been since maybe the start of the Great Recession, it's really there you are. It's really been pretty slow growth, and I'll just rattle off some numbers here, just on a cumulative basis. So if you look at population you have now versus 2008, the start of the recession, the area has grown a total at 8.4%, and the city has grown just about the same, 8.5%. Okay, so not a lot over 10 years, not a lot. And this is quite a bit slower than the Tri-Cities. I think any of you who follow Eastern Washington, you know the Tri-Cities has been the area in Eastern Washington that's been on a tear. And so I'll just rattle off some comparable numbers for that area over the same period. So Richland grew twice as fast. Pasco grew 5 times as fast. And Kennewick grew about 3 times as fast as the city of Richland. On the other hand, you grew faster than the city of Spokane. So you did pretty well there vis-a-vis my hometown. So what has been the source of that growth? I'm not gonna show you an indicator. We do have an indicator for that on a countywide basis, not for the city. But the real source of growth has been in-migration. No surprise. I mean, that's true in most American communities. Birth rates are largely falling. We're living longer, so the real change has come from in-migration. And we only track that at the county level, but I would guess the rate that we saw in Chelan County, which is 2/3 of your growth came from in-migration, is probably true here. So the question is, what does that mean for the city of Wenatchee if you've got most of your population growth coming from people who weren't here last year? And, they may have different expectations of city services. They may bring a change in sort of overall, if I can get this to work, preferences. So just hold it out there as a question. I do want to talk about something that I typically bring up, and again, I don't have the latest for, is this it? No, this is it. For the city, because again, these will come out in December, but you'll get a sense of where you're at with looking at the 2 counties. And I just wanted to point out that this is the non-white population as a share of the total. So these are percentages. And let me get rid of a lot of this. If you haven't done this, you can really help yourself out by getting rid of some of the complexity. And I just want to look at the 2 counties combined and show you just where you're at. Basically, you've got the 2 counties, about 1/3 of your population in non-white. And of course, the bulk of that is in Hispanic, which is about 30%. Okay? Chelan counties is about the same. And if we just look at the city of Wenatchee, and again, we don't have the 2016 updates, but you can see Wenatchee is a bit higher than the 2 counties. So this is the 2 counties, and this is Wenatchee. So the city of Wenatchee is approaching, what do we have here? 37, could be approaching 40%. Pretty interesting mix. And if you were to look at, and perhaps you have, the enrollment of, so this is all ages. So if you look at sort of the future cohorts in the city of Wenatchee and look at the city of the school district and look at the same sort of breakdown by race and ethnicity, you'll find that about 55% of that population is non-white. So this is assuming that most of those school kids would become future Wenatchee permanent residents. This is in a sense is your future is that demographic. Now, I wanted to show you this. On on age. And this was a kind of a curious result when I hadn't thought about this, and maybe I haven't shown this in a while. No, not age groups. So this is the median age, and this is the number that divides a string of ages into two equal parts. And so we typically like to use this as a measure of the middle. And again, you're blue, you being the area, if I can get this out of the way. So you have been as high as a median age of around 40. There's give or take here because these are survey data. And it's dropped slightly to 38, 39. And you can see that you've been slightly, as an area, slightly older than the benchmarks of the US and Washington. Okay, now let's look at Wenatchee, the city of. I can show you Chelan County. It's actually a little older than the two counties combined. And here's the city of Wenatchee in red. Look at the difference you have here compared to the overall median of the two counties. So you have a much younger
I would have
population.
guessed just the opposite, to be honest with you.
Yeah, me too.
Right. I would have too. But, I mean, these are pretty good data. These are census, and it's the largest survey enterprise in the whole world. So I think you can take this to the bank. So you have a younger population, and this is actually younger than the state median. This is younger than most of the communities that we work in, including my hometown of Spokane. The only place that's younger in terms of a city that we see is Pasco. Okay, so Pasco is about 30. So just thought that might be of some interest to you. Okay, now I'm going to move on to just a couple economic indicators. And again, these just came out for the two counties, or I think you know that you are a metro area, a statistically valid metro area in the eyes of the federal government. So I'm going to start out with that, quote, MSA, and we're going to look at something called median household income. And that's the income of not individuals, but of households. So you can have 2 or 3 or more people in one household earning income. Usually it's not that much, more than 1.5 or 2. And this is for the metro area first. And so you can see here the blue line has been a little bit below the black line. And it took a little bit of a dip here for the two counties in 2016, but statistically speaking, there wasn't much change between 2015 and 2016. So I wouldn't put a whole lot of faith, or not faith, I wouldn't put a whole lot of interpretation into that little dip we see in 2016 for the metro area. The bottom line here is that you have, as an area, you've got incomes which are pretty close to the US median. Now, that is unusual for most of Eastern Washington. Spokane is less, Walla Walla is less, Grant County is less, Yakima is less. These are all the communities we track. The only place that has a higher income on a median household basis are the Tri-Cities. Okay, and that has some industry nuances, which I won't go into. Now, so this is median income, and you can see here it's been in the low 50s. So there's 55, and the most recent estimate for the two counties was 52. So let's look at the city of Wenatchee, and again, we only have through last year. And you can see that the red line, which is your community, has been lower than the metro area median. And we can't run statistical tests on this difference, but that was my guess. If we get our hands on the data, you would see that that's a statistically different median. So, and by and large, over the last few years, you've been slightly poorer, or you've had less income than the metro area. So what does that mean for all of you? If this is something that you just have to confront in terms of people willing to spend money on certain things. So how does that compare to the rest of Eastern Washington? This is a result that's actually quite close to Spokane. You have higher incomes than Grant County and Yakima counties. But again, you lag, just like almost everyone does in Eastern Washington, the Tri-Cities. So that's true. Over time, if you were to look at this and compare where you are in 2015 versus the start of the series, basically the conclusion is it's no change, given the margin of error that we have in these data. So think about that. In the period of time that's being measured here, there's actually been no improvement in median incomes. So what does that mean for any different initiative that you might want to do if people's incomes aren't going up? Okay, I want to quickly look at poverty, which is actually a little better story. And this is for the metro area. You can see poverty peaked here in 2013, has been on a rapid decline since then. So poverty, just so you know, for a family of 4, 2 adults, 2 children, is about 25 grand a year. So if you're below that, you live at the 100% poverty level. If you're at 26,000 a year, you're not in poverty. So as some of you may know, the United Way has challenged this assessment of being poor and saying you need a lot more money than $25,000 to be out of poverty. The interesting thing for me here is that if you look at the metro area, you've actually had lower poverty rates than the United States or Washington. Okay, lower poverty rates than the benchmarks, and I thought that was a bit of a surprise. And
in comparison to the county, do you have those numbers?
we do. So here's the county. And the county is in this case also in red, and you can see a rapid decline in Chelan County, and the current poverty rate is
About the same, it looks like.
yeah, probably statistically about the same. Yeah. So
Thank you.
Wenatchee, the city of Wenatchee, is not too different. Again, we'll get the 2016 estimates in December. So you can see it's actually been climbing, but I expect when we get the results in 2016, it'll start to show it. It's been inclining, and we'll start to see a decline in 2016. And the rates have been recently slightly higher, and so we'll let you know when those numbers are out. But poverty rate in 2015 was 14% of your population. So 1 out of every 7 of your residents was in poverty. Okay, now this may be old news to some of you. I don't know how closely you track this, but despite relatively stagnant incomes and sort of a stubborn poverty rate here, your sales tax revenues have been real good. Everyone know that? Okay, so have you gone over the first quarter numbers?
Yes.
Okay, so
But show them to us.
well, I don't want to bring coals to Newcastle. If you've already covered that. So I'm pretty impressed with how you're, and this is quarterly. So again, this is the 2 counties combined, and you can see the blue line has been more or less above the state of Washington growth rate for quite a few quarters. And then here's how you compare to the 2 counties combined, is that you're the red and the 2 counties is blue. And you can see for the last 2 or 3 quarters, you've been at, let me get this out of the way, you've been at or equal to the 2 counties rate. And what is that rate for the first quarter? 16.5%. I can just say, wow, that's a big number. I mean, usually we're seeing year over year or quarter over quarter increases in the single digits. So I don't know what's going on here. Are these big construction projects?
We had a major annexation of Old Station, which was a huge sales tax generator for us, plus construction. Combination of the both of those.
Yeah, but again, this is first quarter, and usually construction, at least the way we track it, construction usually peaks in the third quarter. So this augurs pretty well, I think, for the data that may come in the rest of the year. So go out there and spend money. No. Okay.
We are.
Let me see. Education. Now, I've been involved with this project and projects like this in the city of Spokane for a dozen years, and we've had We have a mayor who, for the first time in 4 decades, is in his second term. He beat the curse of reelection. There is a famous curse in Spokane about
Yes, yeah.
mayors don't get reelected, and that goes back to the 1970s. And so he's reelected, but I do remember the first, if you will, bit of advice I gave him when I had an opportunity, and I've known him for a while, but in his official capacity, I said, Mayor, what happens in K-12 affects your city in a variety of ways, not the least of which is that incoming parents will vote with their feet about where to locate. And so David Condon, the mayor, has said, we want to be the community of choice in Spokane. And my response is, well, let's have one of the best school districts in the area then. So I just wanted to point that out. I think education is really important. I've showed you, I think, metrics in the past on graduation rates and test scores. I'm not going to do that tonight unless you want me to do that. But what I thought I'd show you is some data that I think has a bit to do with economic development. And this is looking at what we call educational attainment. So this tracks the highest degree attained, and we group it in 3 parts. It's high school or less, community college AA or some community college, and then a BA or above. And so here's what it looks like for the area. And I think the area is important because people maybe live and work in different places. So I think I'll leave the benchmarks up here. And this is looking at the share of the population of the 2 county areas. You're blue, the state is green, and the U.S. is black or gray. And you can see there's quite a difference, quite a gap between the benchmarks. So the most recent numbers for the area of the 2 counties, graduate degrees are more about 10%, and bachelor's degree only about 14%. So there you got about 24%, a little less than 24% of your community has a BA or above, okay? Versus, I think the state of Washington's a real tough benchmark, so I'm not going to dwell on that. Seattle, for example, has
So
over
what do they have?
50%.
What's the benchmark? What's the state average? I can't remember.
Want to see the state?
Yeah.
Okay, so the state there is graduate degree is 13, and with the BA or above is 22. So statewide is 35.
Okay.
So you're about 11 percentage points below that, and then the U.S. is about 30 altogether. Okay, so if you were to market yourself as a place for lots of white-collar job opportunities, might be a little difficult. On the other hand, there may be people who say, I don't care about this, I'm going to come anyway. Now, where that's different, sort of the flip side of this is a little bit of the flip side of this. And this is Metro. I can show you Wenatchee City is not too different. In those who've had exposure to community college is pretty high. It's a little higher and has been higher than the U.S., as you can see, than the blue lines or blue bars have been consistently higher than the gray and black bars. So I think that's a reflection of who's here. I mean, you have a very robust community college. A lot of people take advantage of it. And I won't show this to you, but a lot of your jobs, if we can track this for you, actually don't require a BA or above. A lot of the jobs in this 2 county area require this. So it's not a bad match. Now, how does Wenatchee look in this? You can see here the red is a little lower, but statistically probably not that much lower than the blue 2 county average. I can't run statistical tests to tell you whether it is statistically different. Looks like it's not too different. However, so this is community college. With a BA or above, you're slightly higher than the 2 county average, and my guess would be that's due to your healthcare concentration. Okay, so you see red is a little bit higher, and I suspect it'll be that way in 2016 estimates. So that's a little different for all of you. And moving on to some non-education, economic development topics, I thought I'd share this with you, and I don't think I've shared this with you before, but I was just here for a conference, just here that was about 3 weeks ago, held by one of the mayor's brothers on sewer and water districts. And
I heard you were here for that.
yeah. So we actually did some work for your brother on a kind of a data website, actually. Don't know if maybe this is a topic that is common knowledge, but I thought I'd share it with you anyway. So this is looking at water consumption in the city of Wenatchee. Okay? And this is the most recent data we have. This comes from a very cool site from Department of Health. I don't know if you knew about that, but your water districts and your water department reports annually to the Department of Health. So these are the number of gallons produced, and you can see there's a bit of a time trend going down over time. So you're actually pumping less water. If you go back here to 2004 to the most recent data, you see there's a drop of 300 million gallons, and on a per capita basis, that probably looks pretty good, which I'm not going to show you. But here's what caught my eye, is that your system leakage, or the amount of water that doesn't get to people's homes, has actually gone up.
Mm-hmm.
Are you aware of this?
Yep.
Okay, so maybe I'm just treading on
Matt, you want
a
to tell
hot
them what we're
area,
doing
so-
for our leak?
I'll just point it out.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Okay. We did see a decline in 2016 from the 2015 numbers. So 2015 representing the peak where you lost 20% of your water en route to its user. And that's the highest of any community we track except for Walla Walla, where they lose a tremendous amount of water. About a quarter of their water doesn't get to where it's supposed to go. And there's I think, lots of reasons for that. Okay, now I've showed this to you before, and I wasn't aware of something that you guys apparently did until I had my staff look into this. So since I've been coming here, which is almost a decade now, I've heard a lot of talk about the land constraints that the city of Wenatchee faces. And so my response has been, well, maybe make lemon out of lemonade, and maybe regard yourselves as the next urban village in the state of Washington that could really attract people with all the amenities you have. And this was your population density compared to, so it was over 4,000, which was getting up in the range of Tacoma's, by the way.
It's still that way, by the way.
Pardon me?
It's still that way.
Okay. But compared to eastern Washington cities, you have had a much higher, so Kennewick, Walla Walla, and then Moses Lake, you've had a very high population density until recently. And so my only guess is that you've had an annexation here.
We annexed a center that had nobody living there and was all a business center. Right? So everything in Old Station got annexed. We got 4 people. And how many acres? 900 acres with 4 people.
Okay. Well,
So that really affects our density.
that affects your numbers by 800 people an acre.
Yeah.
So it's gonna take you a while to get back to where you were. So I don't know whether I'm gonna talk about my urban village vision for you, because you definitely have dropped in population density, and but unless you annex next year, this will do nothing but go up. Okay, now I know renting and housing has been an issue here, so I'm just going to touch on one, and we can talk about owner-occupied homes. I'm just looking at renters, and I know there's been an issue on sort of the vacancy rate, but I thought I'd share with you sort of a measure of housing strain, economic strain by looking at the share of renters in your area. So I'll look at the combined counties and then the city of Wenatchee, who pay 30% of their or more of their income on rent. So what I found this interesting, because I've heard a lot about the vacancy rent and the vacancy rate and the pressures that people are facing here. And, you know, it is pretty low. It's below 5%, and 5% is sort of viewed as equilibrium, supply and demand matching up. But if you look at the share of the people who are paying 30% or more of the income on rent, which is kind of the critical threshold, typically you like to have people not pay more than 30% of their income on rent. You find that the blue line here, which is for the two counties, has been consistently below the benchmarks. So on that score, by that metric, you're not bad. And this is the lowest rate we see actually in Eastern Washington. So I was kind of surprised to see this relatively low number. So about a third of your population spends 30% or more of their income on rent. And how does that look for Wenatchee? You're a little higher. So the most recent year we have data for was 2015, and you can see over 40% of your
And
renters.
I would say that those 15 numbers
Yeah,
are way different than what we're seeing in October of 2017. My gut tells me those almost 2 years.
So you're seeing,
And I think because the rents have gone up way higher than income. You showed us income.
right, income has been stagnant.
And our rents have gone this way, so I'm guessing that number is going to be a lot bigger over the
Okay.
next 2-year period.
Okay,
Agreed.
all right. Last but not least, I try to, as I think you get the drift here, if for those of you who are new, that, there's lots of categories here, and I just wanted to get a smorgasbord of different areas. And so I'll end up a specific indicator look by looking at public safety. And I want to focus on something that I thought was rather, I shouldn't have chosen this because I want to end up on a high note. So maybe I'll forget another indicator. Looking at an indicator that's a little troubling and for the city, and this is domestic violence. These are incidents that are reported, not unreported, and a lot of this goes unreported. And so this is for the two counties combined, and you can see the rate has been a little higher recently. This is 2016 data than for the state of Washington, but not by much. The rate's been pretty much the same, but it went down in the two counties and it's gone up recently since 2010, 2011. And here's what the city looks like. It's gone up a lot in the last 2 years that we have data for, so 2015 and 2016. So the rate, you can see the red line is above the blue line, has always been higher than the MSA or the two county rate. But it was going down, and then recently it's had a pretty steep bounce back. And I don't have any explanation for this. Maybe some of you know what's going on, but I thought this is way above the state rate right now.
Financial issues may have a role in that.
You think so?
Population density.
Chief, any ideas?
I think I agree. It's poverty level, plus there's some density in certain areas of the city
Right.
that I think are problematic and affects the rate.
Okay, so anyway, that's 10 indicators. Hope I didn't overstay my time here. I'm meeting with the head of North Central Washington's Economic Development District tomorrow, and we hope to relatively soon enlarge the number of indicators on the site. For sure, there'll be another 15 by the time I present to you again, half of which will probably be denominated at the city level, so we can show you more. To be honest with you, due to a variety of circumstances, this site has not changed its mix of indicators since we launched in 2008.
Right.
All the other places we have added to, changed in due to a variety of different things. So my hope is that when I appear before you again, that there'll be not just 15, but maybe 25 to 30 new indicators, because there's a lot out there that has sort of come to our attention in the intervening, 9 or 10 years. So if you'd like to participate in this, please maybe let Allison know. She's your representative on this. I don't know what the process will be like. Before we held focus groups. This time we may just have a more informal process. But typically the way we like to do this is to have the citizens choose what you measure. So we at Eastern did not choose these indicators. It was your
I remember-
fellow citizens
I
who
remember
did
being
that.
on the committee when we did that in
Yeah,
2008. Yeah.
So that's what we want to see is, we want to measure what you want to see measured. And there's ample opportunity to increase our breadth of this going forward.
Patrick, thanks so much for being here. This is always fascinating. I could spend half a day on the sorts of things that you bring us. And I know we use the Trends website a bunch, and so
Good.
I appreciate your work. I
Yeah,
think it's fascinating, and it does help tell a story, and
good.
then we can use that information to help better our city.
Well, I was just asked, I'm at a conference of units like mine across the country, and I was asked to reflect on some of my work, and I've been doing this now, as I said, for a decade. And one of the things I try to ask myself is, first of all, are we helping to move the needle? And sometimes that's yes, and sometimes I don't know. But the other question I ask myself, are people using information like this on a more regular, routine basis? And so it's nice to hear you say that, because, this is a lot of effort, and we don't want to spin our wheels. And so if you can use it, that's makes me happy.
And for the council members, we all kind of chip in to help pay for this. So us and the port and the other port and the counties, and so we're partners in
Right.
keeping
Yeah.
this information up and valid.
There's
Can I ask a question real quick?
Sure.
Patrick, you talked about domestic violence, but how about crime overall? Do you track that?
Yeah. So again, your residents came together, your fellow citizens came together back in 2008. They said, we want to track property crimes. So there's your property crimes. Nice decline. I wish we could say the same for Spokane. I don't know if you follow that, but Spokane, we've had a huge property crime problem. And for Wenatchee, you can see there's been a nice decline, and then recently kind of a plateauing. And then we do the same with violent crimes, and there's other crimes. And we can track lots of crimes.
How do we stack up against Tri-Cities and Yakima?
Pardon me?
How do we stack up against Tri-Cities and Yakima?
Yakima is brand new, so I can't tell you, but my guess would be that you're a little higher than the Tri-Cities, but probably far lower than Yakima.
Beg your pardon?
Lower than Yakima.
Yeah.
But again, I'd have to go and pull the sites up and let you know that. But, I don't know if the chief has any comments on this, but this is something we've seen in most of our communities, a decline in crime over the last 20 years. And so you have it here too. Good thing.
We added our sewer plant trends, we could end on a positive note.
Exactly. Yeah. Where are we rated for best sewer plants? We got an award tonight, so we're doing it.
Yeah.
Patrick, thanks so much for being here.
My pleasure.
Again, always appreciate your work.
Yeah.
Always
Fascinating.
interesting information.
Yeah, so I'm glad to hear you use it.
So do you guys want to take a quick break before we jump into the agenda items?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll just take a quick little 3-minute break, and then we'll start cranking them out. All right.
Okay, here we go.
haven't had
Something about that talk.
Let's actually start our meeting now.
I find it very.
All right, we got a number of action items this evening, and we have a couple of public hearing items. So first action item is regarding our Civil Service Commission. So Chief Crown, come on up.
I'll embarrass somebody today.
Is Mark still on the phone?
I'm sure, he said he was gonna leave at 6, so.
We didn't hear him hang up.
Mark, you still there?
I am. I'm rapidly approaching my meeting location, so I think I'm going to sign off now.
Okay, so we'll note that for the record.
Thank
All
you.
right, thanks, Mark. Chief.
Hello, Mayor, members of the council. I'm Steve Crown, obviously, and this young lady next to me is Lynn Floyd. She is our Civil Service Secretary and Examiner. The motion before you tonight is simply a re-signing of the contract. She provides contract-type work for the city on our civil service. The police department is the only user of that service since the fire department went away. So I've asked a ton out of her, and you were in a hiring cycle, obviously, and that's puts a lot of stress on every portion of the system. Lynn has been with us for a little over 9 years, going on 10 years. She hasn't had a pay raise in that entire time, and so we slid something into the agreement so that we could fairly compensate her. And this motion is just simply to approve the agreement between the city and Lynn.
And yeah, and that pay increase went through the finance committees. It has been approved and is in the budget that you guys have all seen.
Your Honor, I would move that City Council approve the services agreement with Lynn Floyd, Civil Service Commission Secretary Examiner.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Bailey, second by Councilmember Harold to authorize the mayor's signature on the agreement with Lynn for civil service secretarial and examination work. Any discussion?
I'd like to make a comment. Thank you for the commitment you given.
Oh, thank
and, in a way, apologize for it's been 10 years.
Well, the fire department went away. There were some things. Got a new chief now, so new ideas and
I'm working her hard, too.
changes in our workforce with millennials coming up. So it's evolving.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
All right, any more discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Chief. Thanks, Lynn.
Thank you.
You bet. Thanks for hanging in there with us. All right, next item is regarding the sewer extension project. No, sorry. Road, sorry, I got the wrong one.
Jeremy will give you that one after me.
When I saw project 1703, I was thinking something different, so. All right, Gary.
Good
what do
evening,
you got going
Mayor.
on?
And council members. I'm Gary Owen, city engineer. I don't think we've had this agreement talked about with the council yet at this point. I know we have a couple of times with the finance committee. What we've done is we've been working with the DOT, well, for just about the last year now and we approached them to pave a lot of the side streets with the big giant paving project that they have going through town next year. Next year, they're going to be paving basically on Mission Street from La Puente, the end of the George Seller project, all the way through Mission Street, all the way to North Wenatchee Avenue, and then out to across the bridges on the north end of town and into the interchange in Old Station.
Wow.
So what we asked them to do, because of the magnitude of the project and the cost savings by the scale of their project, is to pave a lot of our side streets, about 30 blocks of our side streets, in between Chelan, certainly, that they just paved a couple of years ago, and just a lot of the side streets, at least to the next signal. And to do that takes a lot of signal work, detection replacement, and restriping, and a lot of that stuff also. But if we were to do this, in piecemeal, it would cost us a lot more. So we're getting a lot of bang for the buck. And we had estimated, going back to sometime last year that we were probably going to spend about $2 million on this. I think that's what we have approved by the Finance Committee to spend out of our, a combination of our overlay fund and our TBD fund. And where we're at now, finally, with the DOT is the culmination of this agreement, which pays for their engineering services and estimates the construction cost at about 1.7 for this project next year. So this agreement, this GCB agreement, which was developed by the DOT and reviewed internally by staff and legal, is basically ready for your consideration and approval.
So when I look at the map, Gary, all of the red lines are ones that we're paying for?
That's in a nutshell how you see what's going on best is to look at the map
Okay.
and look at the red. They don't name the roads. They've got funny names for the roads, so you won't see like Lewis Street and all the way we name our streets. They're A line, B line, C line sort of thing. But
That's a lot of paving.
Yeah.
it's a lot of paving. A lot of those are in our pavement management program is being due in the near future. They're not all due next year, obviously, but it just makes a lot of sense to get this done in conjunction with their project next year.
But this is also going to involve grinding and taking care of the ADA corners and so on.
Yeah, but we're not paying for the ADA. That's all on the,
Well, our section will stop before it gets down to that next block.
before it gets to a next block and we get into a next intersection with the ramps that are often non-conforming, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I remember talking about this at Finance Committee, and the idea is, you know, not that we planned on doing it, but this is really a great time to do it. We have some extra money in that account. WashDOT's going down the road. Really makes sense to get as many of these things done as possible. So I'm glad it came in under what we had thought, and we're going to have a bit of a mess next summer. All that stuff at night.
I think they're gonna set it up as mostly night work next year, yeah. But it'll be messy.
It always is, but progress isn't easy.
Yep.
But a lot of times you don't know. I mean, we've had the intersection at Mission and Crawford closed on and off for the last week and a half, and I don't know if any of you have heard anything about that or not.
Yeah.
I haven't heard anything about it. I have to drive it a couple of times. But, no.
We got a brand new signal down there now, brand new pavement. The only thing we don't have is the final plastic stripes down there. We have to wait a couple of weeks until the pavement cures a little bit.
That seemed like it took forever, and we know some people that live in there, and they kept asking, so.
All right.
Glad it's done.
Again, any questions for Gary? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Your Honor, I move for City Council to authorize the mayor to approve the interlocal agreement GCB 2658 between the City of Wenatchee and the Washington State Department of Transportation, providing for the payment of costs incurred with design and construction of requested improvements.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Harold, second by Councilmember Poyer to authorize the mayor to sign the interlocal agreement between the City of Wenatchee and Washington State Department of Transportation for pavement improvements. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Gary, thanks so much.
Now you can talk about sewer.
Okay. Water.
No.
Water.
Transmission.
Skyline Reservoir Transmission Line Replacement. Jeremy, how are you, sir?
Doing well. How about yourself?
Good, thank you.
Well, good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. I'm here to talk about the upcoming project to replace a portion of the Skyline Reservoir transmission line. What we have is a 1952 era steel main that is a combination of 14-inch and 16-inch diameter that has failed at least once significantly. There is an existing building that, as you can see from your handout, has a nice huge crack going right down the middle of it. It's an old CMU structure. The roof is falling apart. It has no floor. The step off into it is about 2 feet of nothing before you get into the room where you can do any work. There's old piping in place. Basically, infrastructure that needs to be replaced. It's reached the end of its life. A portion of the line downstream from that, a little bit further to the east, has been replaced, and this will basically connect the dots, replace the line from the reservoir to the new, excuse me, to the newer pipe. We've got a couple of different alternatives that we're going to be looking at. One is going to be replace in kind, the other would be lining it, third one would be rerouting it outside of the existing corridor that goes underneath a gentleman's driveway. So it's not the best scenario in the world as it sits right now, but we're going to try to improve that. So I'm here to ask for approval to negotiate design services with BHC and authorize the mayor to sign a contract. Before I do that, though, I would like to address the unaccounted for water issue that the gentleman, Mr. Jones, brought up. We have lots of aging steel water lines, and that's a big part of it. We have meters that haven't been replaced in 15 years going through the entire system. That ability to read accurately is very important, and if we get underreported reads from the meters, that's a big source of the unaccounted for water. Another couple of things that we have going on, we're going to be inspecting the reservoirs this year. We're going to be sending dive teams down into the reservoirs to determine the condition. We know that a couple of them have some issues, so we'll be able to quantify that a little bit more. This particular reservoir is one that we're going to be looking at just so we can get a better condition assessment before we actually start doing any kind of design.
So you're thinking design this year and some sort of construction next year?
That's the goal, yes.
Okay.
How severely is this going to affect the one?
I'm sorry?
How severely is this going to affect the one resident?
The one resident, it really depends on the alternative.
Goes through
we
his
choose.
driveway.
We're going to keep access to him one way or another. It's just a matter of how. I'm not going to leave the guy parked out on Skyline Road. That wouldn't be good.
There's no place to park right there.
No, not really, no.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This seems like a moderately complicated process.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun project.
Yeah.
Whenever you deal with
the overhead map, you can't even tell there's a water thing there. It's like it's covered in dirt.
Yeah, it's a buried tank.
Yeah.
You can kind of make out a circle right
Yeah,
there.
I can see it, yeah.
That's where it's at.
I didn't know it was there, so I
don't think anybody knew it was there. I'm anxious to see what you find when you go down and inspect that reservoir.
The gentleman that lives there knows that it's there. He's got markings on his pavement to show exactly where the lines are. He's been refreshing them himself occasionally. So there's blue marks and electrical marks and everything in place.
All right, thanks, Jeremy. I would entertain a motion if we had one.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion for the city council to authorize the mayor to negotiate with BHC Consultants for design services for the Skyline Reservoir Transmission Line Replacement Project number 1704, and further authorize the mayor to sign a contract on behalf of the city.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Huffaker, second by Councilmember Harold, to authorize the mayor to negotiate and sign a contract with BHC Consultants for the Skyline Reservoir Transmission Line Replacement Project. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hill Park Irrigation, Wenatchee Reclamation District, Matt Leonard.
Good evening. Mayor and Council, Matt Leonard, Public Works Director. Could show you where this is at, probably. So what we have tonight is an agreement. So this was for the Hale Park, the Hale Dog Park, the Hale Park project that we did last year that Dave Erickson managed. This project, we had to add domestic water, irrigation water, and power to the southerly portion from the pedestrian bridge.
We forgot to put the map up, Matt.
We've got it on our drawing.
Yeah, you could see it. So anyways, this is just kind of finalizing the paperwork for that easement. So we'll have an easement for our utility trench across the rec district's bridge and their property. And then also we're gonna be leasing four shares of water to irrigate that park from the rec district. We currently don't have any irrigation water rights for that park, so.
4 shares?
4.9.
It's a 5-acre park, isn't it?
Yeah.
That would be for all of the
Yeah,
park,
but
not
I
just,
mean, it's not in grass, it's
but
just
there'll be some of it that'll be in grass.
some trees.
Yeah, I think it's $120 a year or something.
Okay.
Well, shares are based on the amount of land it is, right? We don't have
Yeah.
a choice. It's just, isn't that
Yeah,
the way it works?
the rec district told us how much we needed and. Mhm.
Gotcha.
So yeah, this is just to kind of to get everything set up so that crossing that we already have in place has an actual easement, so we can maintain it. And if the rec district's ever doing something and we have to relocate it, the agreement says we'd have to pay for that.
Okay. All right. Any questions for Matt? If not, I entertain a motion.
Your Honor, I will make a motion for City Council to approve the utility crossing and water lease agreements with the Wenatchee Reclamation District and authorize mayor's signature.
Second.
Have a motion by Councilmember Esparza and a second by Councilmember Markart to authorize the mayor to sign the utility crossing and water lease agreement with the Wenatchee Reclamation District. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Matt. And you're up again with the Convention Center Roofing Project, number 1609B, final acceptance.
Your Honor, I will recuse myself on this item.
So noted.
So this is just to accept the project that we did for the redoing the roof at the convention center. That was, most of the construction was done last year. It was finalized this spring, and this is just accepting it. We did a silicone coating over the top of the existing roof. It's got a 15-year warranty, and it
In business.
ended up coming in a little bit under our original contract amount at $119,770. The project worked out really well. It saved us a lot of money from having to do a conventional membrane roof. The spray-on was pretty nice, and we were happy with it. So happy that we started doing some of our own roofs with it.
Matt, how many, how big is,
I knew you were gonna
my
ask.
gosh, I'm sorry.
No, I think it was 8,000 square. No, I can't
We did one,
guess.
we did one before
We did
this,
one on
right?
the-
And then this one came out lower.
Yeah,
than
so
the first one. Is
I
that
think
right?
we estimated about 300,000 to do a conventional membrane, so we got it for less than half price.
But this is the second one we've done with this
Conven-
silicone
Uh,
stuff. Is that right?
We did the fire station,
Fire
but we
station,
did that
okay.
with our own crews.
Okay.
This is pretty much the Carnegie Building and the Home of Peace Mausoleum are the only two roofs that we did an assessment of all the roofs a couple years ago. And the only ones that had a D or an F rating were those two that we haven't done. So we've done all the rest of our roofs, and it's definitely nice not having to have buckets everywhere.
So we're doing the Home of Peace next year because we were
Yeah,
going to
that
put
was
that in.
approved.
So what's the last one we haven't done?
The Carnegie Building.
Okay. Is that in part of the budget for this year too? I saw a little bit of money for Carnegie. Is that not the roof?
It actually may have been. We can do it ourselves for about $7,000. So it's pretty reasonable. So we're probably going to plan on doing it if we get some good temporaries again this year.
If we do it ourselves, do we get the same warranty?
We don't. We would get the materials, warranty on the materials if they were defective, but since we're not authorized installers, it probably wouldn't. No, we'd be under $7,000, I bet.
Okay.
This is neat stuff. I've been looking into it, so.
Yeah, it's really neat. Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. I would entertain a motion to accept the final bid.
I'll make a motion for the city council to accept the work performed by the contractor Fluid Applied Roofing LLC on Convention Center Roofing Project number 1609B, and further authorize the mayor to sign the final contract voucher certification on behalf of the city of Wenatchee.
Second?
Motion by Councilmember Poyer, second by Councilmember Bailey to authorize the mayor's signature on the final contract vouchers for the roof on the Convention Center from Fluid Applied Roofing LLC. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Purchase and sale agreement regarding some city-owned property with Widener Homes. Steve King, Steve Smith. Anybody else named Steve want to come up? Steve Crown?
Evening, Mayor and Council. Steve King, Economic Development Director.
Steve Smith, City Attorney.
So tonight we're here to present a purchase and sale agreement for city-owned property. It's a parking lot at Mission and Kittitas Street. But before we get into the purchase and sale agreement, just a little bit of background. The impetus behind selling this property is based on two things: a parking study and a housing crisis, and a desire to have housing downtown to help us solve both. The parking study was done last year that showed that we had a lot of extra surface parking in our downtown core. About 50% of our parking is not utilized on a regular basis, so these surface parking lots we're in a surplus mode. And then the housing crisis and the desire to get housing downtown is supported in our comprehensive plan and our downtown study, as well as our goals to improve the vitality in our downtown district. So in August, the City Council declared the property surplus, and we've been since working with Widener Apartment Homes, who is interested in purchasing the property and building apartments. And so this is what the purchase and sale agreement's about in front of you, and there's several major parts that we just wanted to brief you on. One is the purchase prices for the appraised value at $418,000. The agreement specifies that we're selling the property for the purpose of constructing homes. In fact, they have a compliance schedule of 30 months after it closes that they would need to construct at least 170 units over 2 stories of parking. And we also have a long contingency period up to 18 months. There's actually error in my agenda report which says 180 days. They have up to 18 months in which we would expect to work into potentially a public-private partnership. We understand that building housing downtown is really expensive, and oftentimes cities will partner in downtown developments, especially as it relates to the parking garages. So those are the main points of the agreement. Did I miss anything, Steve, that you want to add?
Well, they did have a 180-day feasibility period to study the economics of it, but then they also have an 18-month period to develop to get their approvals for the building permit and the design, and then work out the development agreement with the city. And that's probably where the rubber meets the road, is working out the conditions under which that they would ask us to participate, and that's probably related to a parking garage.
So at the end of the day, we've got an apartment developer that's interested in building up to 170 units here. They want to do a bunch of due diligence, including trying to get some cost numbers put together, so they have a preliminary engineering, just make sure that the numbers work for them. And if the numbers work, then they'll do a closing. And if they don't work, they'll come to us for perhaps some sort of parking agreement or something. And ultimately, perhaps it gets built or not. But they don't want to spend a bunch of money unless they have a purchase and sell agreement that solidifies the deal, which makes sense. Okay.
And as I recall, they're going to allow us to continue to use it as a parking lot until they get done with their study and everything else.
Yeah, use it as until they actually break ground in construction, if they were to close on it. Yep.
Yeah.
That'll make
Yeah,
that.
it's clearly our property until there's a closing. And once there's a closing where we transfer title, which could be up to a year and a half from now. Is that right? Or, yeah, it could be a long time before they actually close. And once it's closed, then we still get to use it until they start building.
And they've also agreed that they will build apartment buildings here. It's not like they're going to buy, they're not locking this up and then buying it and selling it for a higher price for some other use. I mean, it will be for apartment buildings.
You have a performance of it if they went through the feasibility study and then they did purchase it, there would be a performance of finished product?
That'll be part of the agreement, is that they have to build apartment buildings. It'd be very similar to what we did with a hotel.
Okay.
That we put a condition on there that they had to build a hotel within a certain period of time. And we'll do the same thing here.
Nice.
And they've agreed to that. They acknowledge that.
So again, if you got this to the finish line, what a great deal for our downtown to have 170 units of apartments in your downtown business core, I don't think you can put a price tag on what that would mean to our downtown.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion for the city council to authorize the mayor to sign a purchase and sale agreement with the Widener Apartment Homes.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Huffaker, second by Councilmember Esparza to authorize the mayor to sign the purchase and sale agreement with Widener Apartment Homes. Discussion.
Yay.
Double yay.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
It's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, we've got some yays, so I guess we should have a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.
That was easy.
And for the yay.
Next item is to appoint a new member to the TPA board. So Allison and
Rita's here, Chair of the
Rita, you gonna
TPA.
come up?
Your Honor, I will recuse myself on this item as well.
Okay.
So, Resolution 2017-54 would appoint Jason Grover, who is the brand-new General Manager of the Holiday Inn Express, to the Tourism Promotion Area Board. We had an interesting meeting last meeting where, in order to have a quorum, we went and got Mike and Linda out of a meeting, and then we didn't take action on this item, but they do need Jason to ensure they have a quorum at their November meeting, which is where we do budget. So we wanted to make sure we got this here for you tonight. There were in our discussion, no qualms about having Jason join the TPA board. So we would ask for your approval of Resolution 2017-54.
He has good history, good background. His last place was actually a Sleeping Lady, so he's comfortable with the valley.
Looks like he's a local guy.
Great candidate.
Yeah, we're very lucky.
All right, I entertain a motion.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 2017-54, appointing a voting representative to the Tourism Promotion Area Board to fill an unexpired term ending December 31st, 2018. Jason Grover.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Esparza, second by Councilmember Markart to adopt Resolution 2017-54, appointing Jason Grover to the Tourism Promotion Area Board. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Rita. Thanks, Allison.
Tell Mr. Grover, thank you for serving and thank you for hanging in to the end of the meeting.
Always a pleasure.
Thanks, Rita, for being here. All right, we have two public hearings items this evening. The first regarding the moratorium for outdoor storage uses, and the second regarding continuation of a public hearing on vacation of some right-of-way. So for public hearings, we will hear from our staff. Once we're done questioning staff, we'll turn it over to the public for any public comment, and then we'll turn it back over to the council for any action they may be willing to take. So this doesn't look like Steven, so it looks like Glenn DeVries. So Glenn, I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. On September 14th, the council adopted an ordinance providing for a moratorium, ordinance 2017-20. This moratorium was specific to the acceptance of applications for the establishment, siting, location, permitting of new outdoor sales or rentals, or new uses involving storage of merchandise, inventory, or equipment in the North Wenatchee Business District located in the Old Station area. The ordinance included specific findings in support of the ordinance. What the state law says is that we're also supposed to hold a hearing within 60 days of adoption of the ordinance, affirming the ordinance and having findings in place. The findings were already established by the ordinance, but now we're required to have the hearing affirming that the council wants to continue with the moratorium and allowing for the Planning Commission to do the study within the 6-month period and provide you a recommendation on the matter. The planning staff recommends that the council consider a motion affirming the continued moratorium and allowing for the Planning Commission to provide you a recommendation for your consideration within the 6-month period established by the ordinance. Certainly, if you have any questions on the findings and discussion that you adopted into the ordinance. Questions on the matter, staff would be happy to answer those.
So we have a 6-month moratorium, but your time frame here indicates you think we'll get to it in 4 months?
I think we can meet that timeframe, yes.
All right, any other questions for our staff? I know we've talked about this, had it on our agenda a month or so ago. All right, I'll turn this over to any member of the audience that wish to address the council on this particular moratorium. Seeing no takers, I will turn over to the council for any action they may be willing to take.
Your Honor, I'd make a motion to continue the moratorium established by ordinance number 2017-20 based on the findings included in the adopting ordinance.
Second.
All right, motion by Councilmember Bailey, second by Councilmember Esparza to continue the moratorium established by the previous ordinance 2017-20 based on those findings in that ordinance. Discussion.
Have we had any public comment about this yet?
We had 2 individuals with questions. One had a question, and they were actually in the industrial district, and so their concern, this moratorium did not affect them. And then we had one individual representing a potential interest for mini storages in the North Wenatchee Business District, and we encouraged them to let them know what the process was and encourage them to participate in the process.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Glenn. Next up is regarding a public hearing on vacation of right-of-way along the Omi Garden Road. Gary.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Gary Owen, City Engineer. We had planned to hold a hearing tonight to for the council to consider an ordinance to vacate a section of Omi Garden Road adjacent to the Chelan County shop and a portion of the fire station. We got, I'm here tonight to ask that that be continued until November 9th to allow staff to work with the Chelan County PUD, who requested a specific easement for their water line that exists in this vacation area with the property owner, that being Chelan County. They do this with Chelan County all the time. When Chelan County vacates something that's got one of their facilities in it, just to basically to have some control and be able to protect their water line. It makes perfect sense to me. The county doesn't have a problem with it, and I've got a draft agreement that I'm working out between Chelan County and the Chelan County PUD currently, and I should be able to have everything together in an ordinance for you on November 9th.
All right, thank you, Gary. Any questions for Mr. Owen? Hearing none, anybody from the audience wish to address the council on this particular matter? Seeing no takers, I will turn it over to the council for any action they may wish to take.
Your Honor, I make a motion for the city council to continue the hearing date to consider the vacation of a portion of the city right-of-way along Omi Garden Road to November 9th of 2017.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Huffaker, second by Councilmember Harold, to adopt a motion that would continue the hearing date to consider the vacation of right-of-way along Omi Garden Road to November 9th, 2017. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Gary.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Mayor's report. I have no idea where to begin. I know I say this all of the time. Your city staff is incredibly busy on infra grant sort of items. I think the grant is due sometime next week.
Yes.
We have 40 plus letters of support.
Yes.
And continuing to gather those. So I think they're all working kind of full throttle to get the infra grant back to Washington DC sometime next week. Obviously the real estate deals you've heard about today, continuing to work on lots of stuff. We spent part of the day with Noel Schultz, who's the wife of the president of WSU, who's also an electrical engineer by trade, and so we had a couple of meetings with her today. Allison, what other stuff? The budget stuff, Finance Committee went through the capital items today.
You've been making lots of appearances.
I've been making lots of appearances. I think the capital budget stuff, there's a lot of stuff that we adopted in March or April of last year that didn't get done, so those got kind of carried into 2018. We added 2 or 3 small items, other than Matt believes there needs to be new air conditioning units in the police station. So in the 6 years we've had the Finance Committee, I got outvoted for the first time today, 3-1. So apparently there's going to be some at least designing of new air conditioning units for our police station. And we decided apparently the floor of the bathroom in Pioneer Park smells a little bit like urine, so we're going to fix that up a little bit. Other than that, I think the capital items were okay. I told them that the Finance Committee, which will be a new committee, once we get the 2017 actual financial statements done and we know kind of what the little cushion is, we usually have revenues usually a little higher than budgeted and expenses are usually a little lower than budgeted. That once we know what that number is, we'll look at the additional capital items and see if we can proceed there. The regular budget, I think, has been a couple of small little tweaks to it, but really nothing that we wouldn't expect. We actually have the final property tax number slightly higher, but then that's going all the streets anyhow, so it's just an in and an out, and there's been a couple of small adjustments, but really nothing, I think, significant. So I think it's ready for adoption when we get to it. Help me out with other stuff.
You hit the highlights. It's been busy with a lot of year-end activities. We've been getting the schedule out for the council meetings, and also mark your calendars for our employee breakfast Tuesday morning, November 14th. We're planning on all of our employees being there and celebrating lots of activities that we've been working on. So.
And Lyle did give me this. The governor's office has declared October 30th as Weatherization Day in Washington State. So I don't think we're going to do anything, but the governor has, through the Department of Commerce, so encouraging everybody to weatherize your house, get it ready for the winter time. Yep. Anything else? Council members, anything going on? When are we going to hear from Link?
We have a special meeting called for November 13th, I think it is.
Okay.
That's the subject of that meeting.
Okay.
So we should have an idea where we're
headed.
What the how much and what the board's willing to
What the board wants to go do.
take. So yeah.
Okay. We met with the library district earlier this week regarding some improvements to the. There's some physical plant issues, of course, at the library building, which we own half of. We have an agreement with them. They kind of pay rent to us, but we have to keep it for improvements to the building, which means they really don't send us. So we just have to agree. So I think Matt and some of our staff get out to look at their boiler or anything.
Not yet.
Okay. So obviously we have some expertise. They don't have any expertise, so we own half the building. We ought to go. Lisa, yeah, take a look.
Check out a new boiler.
Yeah, whatever, yeah. So
They're trying.
that kind of stuff just never seems to end, does it?
Yeah. What do you mean preempt?
Yeah.
Well,
All right, council members, anything else? So next week, we are meeting I'm confused of the day.
Special meeting, November 2nd.
November 2nd, so we have a special meeting. So we're meeting on the 2nd, the 9th, and the 16th.
And
the 7th.
busy meetings. We have a lot of items coming up for those 3 meetings,
So
so.
expect all
Bring
of
our
it-
sleeping bags?
Yeah, nah. But expect all of these to be combinations of work
Yes.
sessions and regular sessions as we get through some work
Yes.
session items. And so just expect a little bit of both.
Yes.
We've got property tax ordinance coming, we got budgets coming, we've got amended budgets coming, we've got a bunch of those sorts of things.
Pavement management
The
plan.
management report.
They've been invited, the pavement management committee's been invited to attend November 16th.
Okay, good.
To attend what?
The meeting on November 16th, when we adopt the budget.
Yeah. All right, anything else? If not, we stand adjourned.